Module 11, Chapter 7, Event Coordination. Learning outcomes for Chapter 7. You'll be able to develop and implement event design, develop appropriate resources, coordinate catering operations, use trends in your event catering, coordinate technical resources including lighting, sound, and special effects, conduct and analyze the site inspection, and develop and construct the production schedule. Creating and implementing the design. You start with research, move to design, develop your written plan, and move to implementation. Developing your appropriate resources. Your resources for your special event will include but are not limited to people, time, finances, technology, physical assets. Now identify your appropriate resources. Are the resources available? Are they reliable? Now resources are always limited, so this is important for you to develop and plan for your resources. You want to review this graphic in your book about event resources and where to find them. It's divided up by categories, gives you examples and sources. So let's just briefly talk about this and then you can study this in your book. The resources that are discussed are money, people, physical, technology, and time. So let's look at money, for example. For money, you would need starting capital and contingency funds, and your sources for money may be investors. You may borrow money with credit. There may be vendors or sponsors associated with your event. So moving on to people, you may find volunteers, staff, and vendors at convention visitors bureaus, destination management companies, schools, colleges, organizations. You may find people through public relations, your event alumni, and advertising. So read through this in your book about physical, technology, time, where the examples are, and where the resources are for those resources. Catering management. Location, location, location. That is true throughout planning special events. Your location is critical. But also for catering management. Where is your food going to come from? Where is it going to be set up? How is it going to be served? What is the equipment, the utilities needed, the time constraints, the service styles, which we mentioned in the conference and event planning section, logistical considerations. So all of these need to be taken into consideration when you're making your food and beverage decisions. The text gives you 10 steps for identifying resources. First, conduct your needs assessment, then determine your budget. Develop your RFP, your request for proposal document, and evaluate your criteria that you've developed. Identify appropriate firms or individuals to submit the proposals to. Then you distribute the RFP. You review the proposals when they come back. You select your suppliers, negotiate with them, develop and execute your contracts, and then monitor your contract performance. We revisit RFPs in this section specifically for special events. This is most critical. It is developed from your needs assessment and your budget. You state your goals and objectives. You take into consideration your event history. Make your list of who will receive the RFPs. There's at least 3 usually, so you'll have a competitive selection. See the RFP example on page 228 in your book. And you need methods to receive, compare, select, and respond to the RFP. So these things you'll need to take into consideration in advance before developing and submitting your RFPs. We're going to have several slides about catering management. This is where you take into consideration your food and beverage coordination and what is your priority for catering the event. There are 3 main types of catering identified by their location, which would include in-house or institutional catering. That's the majority, and that would be where a hotel, for example, would provide the catering for your event. You can have off-premise caterers, and especially if you have a special event, you may have an off-premise caterer come in. Or if you're having your special event in a venue somewhere where you need to have a concessionaire, where you lease out or third-party contract the whole catering process. Keep in mind your location, and your 5 W's. You'll have to plan for equipment, utilities, time constraints, and choose service styles. You have various options for your service styles, which are listed there and we've reviewed before. For catering management, you need to consider the logistical considerations, which would be the meeting goals and objectives, the age and the type of the guests, the pathways of the service, the number of servers, the food replenishment, lighting, bar type, location, hours, your trash receptacles, dirty dishes, your signal to begin the meal, the time allocated, and the times allocated for the different kind of services are listed there. All of these are for you to take into consideration when planning your special event. When you're having a sit-down meal, it's important to have all service personnel exit before the program or the speeches for minimal interruptions. And it's a nice touch to have your server stand at the exit doors to thank the people who came, to distribute a parting gift, or to bid goodbye. That's just a nice touch if you can do it. Selecting the caterer. Some of the important questions to ask when you're meeting with potential caterers are the number of years in business, the size of the events that have been catered, to discuss all necessary permits, including alcohol permits, to discuss liability insurance and liquor liability insurance, to review their portfolio of past events and look at the professionalism of their past events, to contact their previous clients and discuss how they did, to determine if they're an industry organization member, which improves their status in the industry, and to review their catering contracts. So these are all important things to do before you make a final decision in selecting your caterer. Coordinating the catering operations. We're going to talk a bit about catering coordination, the roles you'll need to be familiar with and what individuals do, the director of catering, catering manager, banquet manager, server and bartender, what do those individuals do? So you can have meetings in person or on the telephone to review the contract elements, to ask questions about food, tastings of the food, beverages, equipment, service types, service levels, terms of payment, to negotiate the final terms. You want to attend comparable events if you can, to discuss logistics and delivery. You can see the list of issues with catering operations and coordinating those are extensive. Reviewing proposals. This is where you want to compare the proposals that you receive back between the competitors to determine who you're going to select. You can also ask for discounts. You may ask for the lowest deposit on your catering, or you may prepay. You may be a nonprofit organization and get a discount. There may be complimentary services that can be thrown in for no cost or low cost, like decor or ice sculptures. And you may get complimentary services of other kinds without having to pay additional amount. And this would be something that you would negotiate directly. Your final step is to review the details, including the date, time, location, parking, etc. Review the times for delivery, service, and cleanup. Coordinate with the other vendors. Train your staff. Make sure the alcohol is managed appropriately, and know what the payment terms are in advance. Cost-saving measures. You may be able to eliminate some meals that you might have wanted to plan. You may go for buffets or box lunches versus full service. You may price the food by the lowest possible unit, so that would be choosing the lesser expensive food. You may be able to secure sponsors or underwriters to your event that might give you money to offset costs. You may eliminate alcoholic beverages, which can be expensive. Or you may go to self-service. That may be where you have people going out on their own for meals as opposed to being served, or that there may be a cheaper like buffet method as opposed to having service. So these are ways that you may look at saving costs once you've planned an event that may be over budget. Catering trends. There may be more elaborate designs and nostalgic designs these days, and there's an emphasis on organic, locally grown seasonal foods and heart-healthy, nutritious foods. And there's been a shift from wine and beer to martinis and hard alcoholic drinks, especially for the younger generation. And caterers are taking on more and more event planning roles. So it may have been someone who started out as a caterer who moves or shifts into taking on larger and larger event planning roles. Coordinating the technical resources. If you have a live production, that's going to be a different planning process than if you have something that's already canned or recorded. So if you've got live production going on, you'll need to coordinate those technical resources. The why and the what is the purpose of the technology, the size of the live audience, the audience profile and learning style. inspect the venue and inventory assets, and visualize from a guest's perspective. Also, the purposes of the event technology. Is it to educate? Is it to entertain? Is it to do both? So coordinating the technical resources will need to take all these things into consideration, everything from why you're doing it to what it is you're trying to do, whether you have a live or a recorded performance, and what is the purpose of your event. All of these things you need to take into consideration. Audio-visual effects. This is audio plus visual. Matching the technology to the style and purpose. In your special event, you want to attract attention, communicate, focus, build retention, attract, educate, excite. Which of these or all of these are you trying to do? So matching the technology to the style of your event and the purpose of your event is very critical. Coordinating and analyzing the site inspection. You learned about this in conference and event planning. It's the same is true for special events. There's a site inspection checklist on page 241 to 251 in your textbook. The in-person visit is best. You conduct a preliminary inspection on the internet, which we've talked about, but it's best to do this in person. And then visit again within 30 days of the event. So it's important to do your site inspection before, but you can also do an inspection after an event. Site diagrams. This is a little more in-depth than what you've had in the past, but it's important to obtain as much information as possible when planning a special event. So you'll want to have the exterior diagrams, which your site should be able to produce for you, which would show all the event areas, the buildings, the parking lots, and then in the interior would show all the function rooms, hallways, reception areas, and restrooms, so you have a graphic depiction of where your event is going to be. This is really helpful in your planning phase. Event specification guide. You'll want to study this because you'll want to produce an event specification guide for your homework and for your special event if you're doing a special event. It's also called a production schedule, event resume. There are various names for this. And there's an example in your book on page 255. So study the event specification guide and all the details that are included in that, because this is your master plan. Conflicts. Conflicts happen, so plan for conflicts. Resolve conflicts quickly. Typical types of conflicts would be late arriving caterers or vendors, multiple vendors coming at the same time, speaker or entertainer cancels last minute, and also medical emergencies. Now there's more conflicts that can happen than these, but this you'll want to take into your contingency planning. Plan for problems. Plan for problems so you'll have an immediate response to problems should they occur. Develop your systems for quick and effective resolutions and hope the problems never happen. So this is plan for the worst and hope for the best, but if you have a plan, you'll be able to respond quickly.